Hello, everybody. I hope you're well wherever you are in the world and that you've had or are having an amazing weekend. I'm sorry for the late notice. I am traveling, so I'm trying to do these Facebook Lives whenever I can and to keep up as many of them as possible. A lot of you have been talking about the fact that you've been struggling to let go of anger, and a couple of you said that you would like me to do a Facebook Live on how to forgive. Now, I really think that's a great subject because there's a very big myth about forgiveness. And there's something that everybody gets wrong about forgiveness. So I really want to talk about that. You know, I know what you're feeling when you leave an abusive relationship, because when I left, and particularly when you leave an abusive relationship and you're still for the first time, because you've had to suppress so many emotions for so long that you just are numb. And when you come out of an abusive relationship, I call it thawing out. And as you thaw out, all of these emotions that you haven't felt in years, possibly even ever, start pouring out. And a lot of, I felt loneliness, I felt fear, and I felt anger. I felt, how dare he do this to me and my child? How dare he almost murder me when I was pregnant? Why did I never feel angry about this before? Now I feel angry. And it's very hard to let go of that anger, because especially a lot of you are saying that you find it very hard to let go of that anger when you're seeing them happy in a new relationship. And it's almost like they're rubbing salt into the wound. So I get it. I understand that anger. But what I'd like to talk about is the myth about forgiving. You know, I felt like a lot of you do. How can I forgive him? How can I forgive someone who almost murdered me? But I realized as I started to heal, and I was quite shocked to discover this, that actually there was a lot of forgiveness I need to find. Now, it's not just about forgiving your ex for what they've done. Sorry, I'm trying something new with like one of those selfie sticks, but I'm realizing it's starting to shake a bit as my arm gets tired. And I'm also using a new little microphone on my iPhone, so I hope the sound's better too. Anyway, I'll keep going. So I realized that there's three parts. I had to forgive my ex, and I'll explain this in more detail in a minute. I had to forgive my ex. I had to forgive my parents. And I had to forgive myself. Because forgiveness after being in an abusive relationship is really complex. The first part was I knew instinctively I had to forgive him. And I say that because I needed to let go of him. I did not want to be tied to an abusive man for the rest of my life. So I thought the only way I can let go is I have to find forgiveness. Now, this is where everyone gets it wrong. This is the myth about forgiveness. Forgiveness is not forgiving them for what they've done. It's not forgiving their behavior. Abusive behavior is unacceptable. They are responsible for that. It is their actions, and it is unforgivable, okay? So let me just try and get that clear. It's unforgivable. But unless I forgave him, not his behavior, I'm not condoning his behavior. Forgiving does not have to be about condoning their behavior. What it was for me was seeing that, realizing that as an in an abusive relationship, there is a dynamic. It's a codependent relationship, and there was something about me that was attracted to him. There was something about him that was attracted to me. If it wasn't something in me, well, why isn't every woman attracted to guys like that? And I could see very clearly my friends weren't. There was something in me. So I realized that in a weird way, my damaged child inside me that I discovered and my emotional baggage matched his. We both were very damaged children trying to find love in a very unhealthy way. I was wanting him to make me feel whole. I was looking to the outside world for love and to feel good about myself because I didn't feel good enough. And he was doing the same. He was just as damaged, probably way more damaged, I would say, than I was. So I was able to look at him and go, you are the product of an abusive home. Your father was violent. Your abuse passes down generations. So I could just say, I accept that and I forgive you for that. Now, as I said, I'm not condoning violent behaviour. But the myth, you see, is that forgiveness is not about forgiving violent behaviour. It's about freeing me from him. Does that make sense? Do you get the difference? Forgiveness is not about forgiving an abusive person. It's about freeing you and not being tied for the rest of your life to them as their victim. So I was able to separate the two. I was able to hate and be angry at him for that abusive, violent behavior, but forgive the damaged part of him that caused him to do that. And as you'll see, that caused him to do that. I'm not to blame. And that's the second part of my forgiveness. I had to learn to forgive me. There's a helicopter going ahead. I had to learn to forgive me. Because I had insecurities and fears I never even realized I had deep down inside me. I was a damaged child. And I had to forgive me. I was not to blame for staying in that relationship. I was not to feel shame for doing so. And a lot of you have asked me to do a Facebook Live on that too. Shame and guilt. And I'll do another one about that more specifically later. But I forgave myself for going back when I knew he was violent. I forgave myself for exposing my child to that for too long. I forgave myself for not telling people, not seeking help. I realized I wasn't to blame and I had no need of shame and guilt. So that was forgiveness number 2. Forgiveness number 3 was to forgive my parents. Because as I said, these patterns passed down. I did not grow up in an abusive household. My memories are very happy actually as a child, but there was enough dysfunctional and self-limiting negative patterns of behavior that led to self-limiting beliefs in me that made me feel that I was not good enough, that I deserved that abuse somehow, that I wasn't worthy of anything better. Now, again, I was able to forgive my parents because they did the best that they could at the time, and they were the product of how their parents taught them, and those patterns of behavior that passed down to them, and their self-limiting beliefs that passed down to them. And as you can see, we are all just victims of this cycle of abuse. It might be extreme abuse, it might be just a bit of dysfunction like I experienced that was enough to make me go into an abusive relationship. So you can see forgiveness is very complex, and there was a lot of work involved to get me to the point where I was able to forgive him, myself, and my parents. So it's way too deep and complex for me to go in this short Facebook Live. But I just wanted to give you the concept, the first concept, which is that forgiveness, the myth is it's not about forgiving an asshole, excuse my language, from beating you up and abusing you emotionally. It's not about that. It's about freeing you. And as I keep going on and on and on, and I know I'm a stuck record on this, it's not about them If you really want to recover abusive relationships, heal, break that cycle and never repeat it again so that you find healthy love next time, then it is about you. So part of that healing process for me was forgiveness. But forgiveness, as I said before, is not condoning abusive relationship. It was about freeing me. So, does that make sense, everyone? Cynthia says yes, Joanne says yes. I'm glad, because it's very complicated, but everybody gets this wrong. They go, how can I forgive that bastard? I'm never going to forgive. And you know what's going to happen if you keep being like that? That anger is not freeing you. It's just churning inside you. That hate, that anger, Catherine says yes. I'm glad that makes sense. You know, that anger and that churning is not freeing you at all. You're tied to them as a victim. So, as I keep saying, guys, you've got the choice. Catherine says yes. Brilliant. Awesome, guys. Because everyone gets this wrong. And it was one of the most freeing things for me. So the first step is just to understand that concept. Now, I know that there are a lot of you out there and in this group who have suffered extreme abuse, sexual abuse, extreme violence. Now, I know that sort of level of trauma, I'm not saying either that you have to forgive. I just want to put that caveat there, because some of you have been through really extreme sexual abuse, childhood sexual abuse, grooming, extreme violence in your relationship. So for those of you who find that concept still very difficult, to separate the forgiveness of them with the actual forgiving their behaviour. If you find that really, really difficult, then that's okay. I'm not saying you have to forgive if you find it really hard and too traumatic, and if it's triggering that trauma again. But what I would say to you, those of you who are in that extreme group, if you can't forgive, then at least try to understand the concept of letting go. Letting go of them to free you. So if you can't forgive, just say, I cannot change this now. It happened in my past. But what I can change is I can start to work on me and heal me, and then let them go, because I do not want to be their victim for the rest of my life. I'm going to let them go because they don't deserve my energy, my emotion, my time. They don't deserve to destroy the rest of my life. So I hope that's helpful. I just wanted to clear that up, that myth of forgiveness, because I know a lot of you have been struggling with forgiving, and a lot of you have been struggling with anger, and that's what you asked me to do a Facebook Live on. So please keep them coming. Let me know what you want to do these Facebook Lives on. And I just want to ask you, are you going to try and accept that concept that forgiveness is not about forgiving and condoning violent or abusive behavior? It's about freeing you. And if you can't forgive, then at least can you let go to free you? Because, guys, I'll ask you again, which do you want to be? Are you ready? Do you want to stay a victim for the rest of your life? Because if you can't forgive, and if you can't let go, and if you can't let go of that anger that seethes away at you inside, you will be a victim for the rest of your life. And you might think that you're being strong and dealing with this because you're in this group and you're reading lots of self-help books and all that sort of stuff. But if you don't make that fundamental shift, thank you, Cynthia, it's liberating. If you don't make that fundamental shift, then you will be a victim for the rest of your life. And what's your choice? Are you going to be a victim for the rest of your life? Or are you going to listen to me, work with me, and join me to take your power back and free yourself from abusive relationships for the rest of your life? That's your choice. So if you are still struggling and you want to work with me and go deeper to help you deal with that anger and that struggle, and to free yourself as a victim, give me a shout, drop me a personal message, DM me, PM me, whichever one you say, and I'll set up time to have a chat. Otherwise, have a fantastic day. Thanks all for joining me, all of you who've been here with me live, and I hope the start of your new year is already a fantastic one. And thanks everyone for all your support. Again, you actually really inspire me to keep going and to doing this, and I can't wait to make 2020 a really great one for you and for as many of you as I can. Thank you, Jennifer. I just happened to see this and I'm listening. I love your words. Such a great message. Thank you so much, Jennifer. That's a beautiful message. And you know, I get messages like this every day. I wake up to these messages in my inbox, and it's just amazing. You know, my mission, guys, is to make as many of you recover from abusive relationships, heal you from within, and never settle for anything less than you deserve again. So that is my mission, and I want to do that for as many of you as I can in 2020. I want to break the record of last year, so that is what I'm here for. So the choice is yours, guys. If you want to forgive, you know, that's the concept. I know it's really complicated. I'm sorry I don't have time to go into the complexity of how to forgive yourself, your parents, your ex. It's very complicated, and it took me a long time to do that. But I just wanted to give you that first little step, which is to understand that where you're going wrong is you're confusing forgiveness with forgiving violent behavior, and that's not the same thing. Forgiveness is about freeing you and allowing yourself to move on and heal and not to be tied to them for the rest of your life. So that's your choice. All right, lots of love, guys, and let me know if the sound was better on this one, because I'm experimenting while I travel. I want to absolutely make sure I keep doing at least 2 Facebook Lives a week. So I've got this little microphone I've stuck into my iPhone, and I'm hoping it works. So bye for now, and have a beautiful day or evening where you are. Speak to you soon.